Designated Survivor is so interesting, both in the fact that it is a real thing, in case you didn't know, and, of course, the series, where I learned about all of this. But the concept of Designated Survivor is essentially an insurance plan. Someone is sequestered away in an undisclosed location. Of course, the Secret Service know because they know everything. But their purpose is to be there so that should the worst happen during a gathering of the rest of the executive leadership of the United States, there will be no lapse in governance. Yes, there will be a time of rebuilding, but there will still be some kind of executive leadership for the country so that it doesn't just devolve into anarchy. I like the idea. It's only the same as you insuring your house, your belongings, your car, although in lots of places that's mandatory. The idea of that was so unknown to me. I actually looked up whether we had that over here, and it was floated, I think, when Boris Johnson had COVID. But if we're honest, a lot of MPs just don't bother turning up at the House of Commons anyway, so do we really need it? Was that a scathing political jab? No, never. But the series was a surprise. Like many of you, I think, I watch things when I eat, just have something on, just as a joint moment for the family. And I know it's probably better to actually just talk about your day when eating, but you're eating, so you can... Look, we all do it. Shut up, don't judge. But Designated Survivor was one of those that came up, and we were like, yeah, we'll give it a go. Neither of us were super into it beforehand. I mean, I've always loved Kiefer Sutherland, and I'll get on to much of the acting talent in a short while. So that was a draw. I always enjoy watching him perform. I was like, yeah, we'll give it a few. If we don't like it, we'll just scrap it. It's our kind of rule. If we're not enjoying it in the first 15-20 minutes, it's not worth it. Or if it's a series, maybe 2 or 3 episodes, really give it a good run, but we'll drop it if necessary. But we found ourselves enjoying it and learning again about this concept. But like I said, there are so many people here, acting talent-wise, that I've had a great respect of before, like I said with Kiefer Sutherland. But there's also a lot of people who I've never really seen before, but grew an attachment to. And unfortunately, some of them were unceremoniously just cut for the 3rd season, but we'll get there later. Obviously, I've already said Kiefer Sutherland, I've loved him since, I guess from his chronology, Lost Boys, but from my chronology, I'm sure it was something else that he'd done later that I'd seen before that, if that makes sense. I've always had a great respect for him. Natasha McElhone, I was sat there going, I know that face, why do I know that face? And of course, she was in The Truman Show, which I covered recently. She was the one who he fell for in high school and was telling him it's not real, I'll get you out of it. That was her. So of course, she was in my head. McKenna Grace we all know now, and she's absolutely adorable as Penny in this. And there's a few people that I was vaguely familiar with who I've grown more fond of through the series as well, such as Cal Penn. I've always liked him. I enjoyed him in How I Met Your Mother and stuff like that. But he did actually work in the political field for some time. He does have experience in this arena. The fact that he's named as a consultant on every episode, I think proves that point. But he's great here as Seth. But there's a lot of people, like I say, who I didn't know at all. Adan Canto as Aaron Shaw. He's great. He's amazing. I love this man. He is so charismatic, and I love the fact that, particularly again in the 3rd season, because it was a massive change of direction, there's a lot more of him leaning into his heritage, because he's what could be called passing. Which is where he does have some kind of, South American, Central American heritage, but he's light enough in tone like some are, so people don't necessarily know. The fact he changed his name to Shaw kind of says that as well. And we have Emily Rhodes, Pedro Italia Ricci, who also played the piano in that one episode. That was actually her. She does know how to play. Again, not at all familiar with her before, but some of the stuff she's had to do throughout this whole series is great. Maggie Q was someone I knew of, but I don't think I'd watched much with her in. And I was so sad to see Hannah Wells killed off. Now, when she posted on Instagram, like, yeah, okay, you know now it's happened. It was all very positive, but there's a bit in my mind that it's like, is that political, ironically enough, because she doesn't want to not have another job to go to? If you badmouth your previous employer, basically, it doesn't look good for you, does it? So I wonder if there was that, but It's just guesswork. I'd like to say that it was amicable and she wanted to make herself available maybe for pilot season or for a project that she wanted to do. I don't know. The guy who played Chuck, whose name I've unfortunately forgotten, he was great. He started out very much as comic relief, but again grew into something more serious. Paolo Costanza as Leor, again introduced and pretty much existed for the second season only because he was unceremoniously dropped. Now, people have said that it was a budgetary and creative change, that a lot of these people didn't carry on, but it's still annoying that we didn't get any nods, because he was really annoying when he was first introduced. But I grew an attachment to him. I grew to actually like him because they fleshed out the character over that 1 year, so that I was disappointed. And the last person I want to give a real big hat tip to is LaMonica Garrett. His performance as Mike Ritter, I have to say it that way because otherwise it sounds like I'm saying Mike Ritter, like a tiny creature that I have. So Mike Ritter, Secret Service agent, we grew, again, an attachment to him. We grew this fondness over time. The fact that we saw him be really harsh, but then soften. And I love the fact that the writing team behind this gave us those kind of things where we had someone who was quite a rigid person. They had quite a difficult persona to get on with in many ways. But you could then grow to understand why they're like that. You could grow to appreciate this character. There's a lot of people here who I hated when I first saw them. I was like, I don't like this character at all. Bores me. Hate him. But I really sort of grew an attachment over the time. And like I say, it was a shame that some of them left. But that was because the second season didn't perhaps wow people as much as it should have done. I don't know why. I thought it was fine. Taking the whole three together, it did feel a little more, not slow, but fun. There was a lot more kind of silly moments because of bringing in Leor and things like that, I think. They leaned on that enough, which, made it light so that the heavy moments hit better, like the death of Alex Kirkman. But for the third season, they didn't know what was going to happen, and Netflix swooped in and said, hey, we'll do this cringy thing where we give every episode title a hashtag. We're hip, honest. It's theming. I'll let them off. Okay. But, so that was a change. The budget for Netflix would have been different than a network TV show, and the creative people behind it. I'd like to think Netflix are a lot more hands-off than studios, but there might still have been certain things. I mean, there might have been creative changes anyway behind the scenes that they wanted to do. Maybe they really wanted to talk about the idea of, does Tom Kirkman get... Now, they always use the term re-elected because it's easy shorthand. It's the president coming back, it's re-elected. But because he was never elected, technically that's wrong. But I get the concept. It's fine. So these changes came in as a result of these two things. And the fact that we had... Obviously, Kiefer Sutherland had to keep his billing and things like that. A lot of these people who were cast regulars kept their billing. But we had Anthony Edwards, who was a guest star. But he was a guest star for the entire season. He was probably recurring, not just guest star, technically, if you behind the scenes how they factor it, which would put him at a slightly higher pay grade. But I'm guessing the budget meant that he couldn't be a regular because they would have to give them a higher rate. But on the subject of guest stars, I do have to give a hat tip to Jamie Clayton. The fact that she was willing to do this meant that she felt that it wasn't poorly represented. Politics will come into play whenever you take any job, and I don't think acting's different. You wouldn't get a role if you thought it was a disservice to something that you're having to deal with. Because whilst I've not dealt with things to the same level that she has, and a lot of other people like her, I'm in that umbrella. So I felt that it was as respectful as it could be. It tried, at least. And I will never hold that against it. In fact, one of the other great casts for the third season was Ben Watson playing Dante, the social media and digital guy for the White House and then the campaign. Because the interviews and the little clips they showed, even the support group, the trans support group, they were all real people giving their stories. I shed a tear with the whole insulin thing. The woman saying that her son started just rationing out his insulin because it's so expensive. I was like, this woman's a good actor. I respect this. This is great. And then I saw the thing at the end. The testimonials and videos are real people. And I was like, I can't not cry now. I'm almost on the verge talking about it again. And the stuff about the opioid epidemic, which is a real thing. Whilst the third season was a very different direction, whilst there was a lot that could have been better, like keeping some cast members, but whilst there are a lot of perhaps missteps and things it could have improved on, I think the fact that it chose to include real struggles that the real world current administration should tackle was absolutely fantastic. I don't think I've ever been more impressed in a TV series for going, do you know what, we're pushing the envelope here. And maybe that was the creative change that they're on about. They wanted to bring it more into a real world feeling. Because I think whilst the whole campaign trail side of it wasn't perhaps the most fun, it gave us an excuse to bring these things to the fore. And like I say, to have real people talk about it was so much better than just getting a bunch of actors and having a writer hopefully come up with something that sounds correct. Now, I'm sure Ben Watson would have no issue with me talking about this because he said it in interviews, but the character of Dante kind of helped him come out. He had a whole hang-up, as I think any of us do who are not cis, het, whatevers, that once we come out, we are suddenly, in his case, Ben, the gay black guy. We don't want it to be the identity that everyone just attributes to us. And it's hard, because we do think of people by labels. But seeing how Dante was a black man who was great with technology, who happened to be gay, really helped him realise that it didn't have to inform all of his character. Yes, as the season went on, there was a lot more emphasis placed on the gay side, but it also allowed them to break out the you equals you storyline, which I had to look up to make sure I understood it correctly. Undetectable is untransmissible. If you're HIV positive but undetectable, you don't have enough in you basically to pass it on. But the fact that he didn't reveal that was the big issue in the relationship, and I love the fact that they pivoted it to that. He was like, no, but you're safe, we still have protection, I didn't think it was necessary. And the other guy going, but I still should know. But I like how they pivoted a case of like, yes, you were wrong for not telling me, but I was wrong to be as spooked that I was, because my doctor said, yes, you is you. So I love the fact that, yes, the third season tackled some interesting issues, but the campaign stuff was weirdly enough the least interesting. But it did give a wonderful arc, the whole thing, for Kiefer Sutherland. Like I said at the start, I respect this man to the hilt. I absolutely love his work and what he's had to do and gotten to do over the course of this. All of the speeches, and I know obviously, yes, they were written by people who are making sure the wording's absolutely brilliant to create an emotional response in us, the viewer. But if this hasn't scared Kiefer Sutherland off running for any kind of office, if he can get those writers to write everything for him, he could win hearts and minds. I don't have any doubt. So, hey, if someone wants to pass this to Kiefer Sutherland, if he's never thought of it, do it. Do it, man. You can, please. I'd love to see President Kiefer Sutherland in my lifetime. It's not even my country. I don't have a horse in this race. I just think if you could get the people to write the speeches like this, but then he'd have to deal with all the horrible political stuff. Yeah, maybe stay an actor. It's potentially less stressful, I'd say. Designated Survivor, first 2 seasons, one thing, one way. Last season, very different, but a lot more, I guess some might call it preachy in some places, but I think it took some guts to tackle real world issues and bring them to our attention if we weren't already aware of them. So I respect that, and I liked it for the most part. I enjoyed my time with it, and I think there's some great people here who I'm interested to see more of their career. So thank you very much for letting me talk about this, and as always, take care.